I think for creatives, we like to do what we like to do, not necessarily what we have to do. And this is a little bit about like what we have to do if we want to run a successful business. Maybe like you, I jumped into a lot of these books, right? So The 4 Steps to Epiphany by Steve Blank, all about customer development. These are incredible, incredible books. They help you to figure out how to like get product market fit or how to think through a business and be able to tell somebody else about it. But they don't tell you what you have to do day in and day out to run the business every day, right? Not just like figure out if it's a real business you should go after. What is the priority? I don't have unlimited time. So what is my priority on a day-to-day basis? Leadership, finance, operations, growth, product, service, sales, and marketing. That's it. Every single business has these 8 core concepts within them. And every successful business is led by a team who understands these concepts. First, leadership. Leadership is about creating a culture in which a business can thrive. So things that leaders do, they create vision and values. They focus on management. They focus on communication. Communication is basically the #1 role of leadership. And this is true whether you're in a one-person business and you're just sort of running it yourself. You need to be really clear about what you're doing. You need to manage your own time, and you need to communicate with the partners that you're working with. Because even in a one-person business, you're going to have different vendors or you're going to still have to communicate. So leadership is always about creating the culture, whether you're a one-person business or a 10,000-person business. Finance, you have to ensure the sustainability of the business. I know a lot of us like to say product first, or everything is about marketing, or service, take care of the customer. Look, if you don't make a profit, you don't have a business. You have a fun piece of art. So finance is super, super important. Revenue, expenses, profit, assets, liabilities, capital, taxes. Taxes are not like at all like a normal thing. You know what I mean? It's like an entirely different thing. But trust me, if you don't understand your taxes, you could do everything else right and completely go out of business. So this is super, super important. Operations. Operations are about minimizing the risk in your business. What form of company do you set up as? Sole proprietor, LLC, corporation? There's all different types of forms of a business. Insurance, do you have adequate insurance coverage? Contracts, are your contracts drafted correctly? Human resources, are you employing people? If you are, you got a lot of risk on your hands. So you got to be able to handle that correctly. Process, technology, measurement, that's everything that's inside of operations. And it's all ultimately about minimizing risk. Growth, optimizing the business. Growth is about the understanding that when you enter the market is not static. The market is dynamic. It's always changing. What you have today that works really well might be a totally saturated market full of knockoff copycats in 2 months, right? Or something drastic can change in the market and you have to really shift. So you can never get lazy. Growth doesn't mean you have to like make more money all the time, but you do have to think about how to optimize your business. You have to be thinking about reinvestment. You have to think about developing a point of view. You have to be thinking about innovation, and you have to accept that changes happen and drive the change as opposed to being impacted by the change. Product. So there's so much out there about product. Silicon Valley has really taken this word product and made it to mean a bazillion different things that I don't think it was ever intended to mean. Product is quite simply a predictable unit of value. It is the thing that your customer understands they're getting for you. They want it to be predictable when they get it for you, and they're going to exchange money for it. That's all a product is. But the discipline of product is about research, development, design, production, quality control, pricing, and more things. So you have to understand product. Service. Service is about maximizing customer satisfaction. I think some people think that if you're in a consulting business, that's a service-based business. I would say it's not. I would say most people who think that they're in a service-based business in terms of what they're selling miss the fact that they have to deliver a predictable unit of value. I think no matter what business you're in, you have to deliver service because things are going to go wrong. So you have to fix those things. You have to be willing to stand up to some kind of guarantee. And you have to understand that when you have a customer, that's a relationship. And so just like you would not invest in a relationship with a loved one or a family member or a friend, you have to invest in that customer relationship as well. And that's what the service concept is all about. Sales. You have to generate revenue. This should be the simplest thing ever. What's your point of sale? What's your method of sale? What's your model for selling? That's all sales is. It's just about generating revenue. And then finally, marketing, which is my favorite one, which is about identifying, understanding, and generating demand. What is your brand? What is your reach? What is the content that you're going to use? What are the channels that you're going to use to try to reach your customers? Now, there is an order of operations, and there's a way to connect these concepts logically. And so I'm going to walk you through the priority order of these concepts. But I want to first say that the lower the priority, the more comprehensive. And this is a concept kind of from computer science called inheritance. So it basically means that the highest concept, which is leadership, surprise, basically can be found in all of the other concepts, okay? You can find it in all of the other concepts. So they're not separate. They're all actually embedded in one another in this order I'm about to present to you. Leadership is at the top. Finance is absolutely the second most important thing. And this is where a lot of creatives get it wrong. Because we love our idea and we love to create and we love to get out there with the customer, we don't pay attention to our P&L. We don't pay attention to our taxes, and we get totally screwed up, and we look up in 2 years and we're like, I thought I was having fun, but now I'm broke. I've spent all my savings. And it's because we didn't really understand how important the finance aspect was to our business. Operations growth. So you can see I've prioritized everything internal, everything inside takes precedent over the customer focused stuff. And that's because you can't actually deliver the stuff to the customer if your house isn't in order. Okay. So you've got to have that leadership, that finance, that operation, and that growth mindset really locked in so that you can create a great product, so that you can serve your customer well, so that those things can lead to great sales, and so that your marketing is really effective. This is what a team might look like behind the 8 core concepts. So obviously leadership will be the CEO, the board, the entire management team. Finance, everyone would imagine the CFO, the bookkeeper, the tax accountant. Operations, COO, who's your lawyer, who's your insurance broker, project manager, your technology, information and technology folks, your tech partner, your human resources team, all of that fits inside of operations. In growth, who's your chief strategist, who's your head of innovation, you have analysts or consultants, they will all sort of fit into the growth space, helping you think about what's next. Product, chief product officer, product development team, service, your chief customer officer, and on and on. So you can see how over time you sort of, when you start a business, you're the whole thing. But if you're successful, you're going to start to backfill different people. This is kind of what the people you're going to need on your team look like. So many entrepreneurs fail because they don't know these concepts. I know I did over and over again. I remember the very first time that I had 10 employees and I didn't know that I actually had to pay payroll taxes on them. So I was writing checks out of a checkbook every week. And then at the end of the quarter, I got this really big, nasty email from my accountant that was like, dude, you're way in the hole right now because you're supposed to be paying something like an extra 15% on top of what you've written for the payroll tax for these employees, and you've been spending it on computers and other really nice culture things for them. Meanwhile, you're going to run afoul of the state. So you have to know these things. You have to know these things, or inadvertently you will kill your own company because you just didn't know them. The context of those are basically, I organize them into 2 different categories. One is inside of the building. So you got 4 of these concepts that really mostly belong inside of the building with your team, with your company: leadership, finance, operations, and growth. Okay, those are all the things that you really, on a day-to-day basis, when you're talking to your coworkers, your colleagues, your boss or whatever, this is what you're talking about. You're talking about the leadership, the finance, the operations, and the growth. The outside of the building is the customer-focused stuff. So that's the product, the service, the sales, and the marketing. That's everything around the customer experience. It's not that you're not dealing with it in the company, but the focus is almost entirely on the customer as opposed to an employee or a boss. I've talked about the inheritance. That means it includes all of the properties and the methods of the other concepts. And so this is just me explicitly saying finance includes leadership, operations includes leadership and finance, and so forth and so on. Marketing, which is the last one, is the most comprehensive. That's why people are seeing marketing officers being risen up to the top of the company right next to the CEO in so many leading companies. It's because if you're in marketing, you have to understand every aspect of the business, right? Because you're out there in the market communicating with the customers before they become customers. And you have to be able to talk about every aspect of the business in a way that's authentic and true, so that when they come in, you haven't oversold, you haven't over-delivered. You've effectively communicated the reality, and hopefully everything beyond what you've said actually stands up and meets what the customer is expecting of you. So just don't be that entrepreneur. Take the time to learn the core concepts. I wrote about them in my book, Create and Orchestrate. It was an Amazon #1 bestseller. There's a lot of narrative in here. This book is mostly about my failures. I talk about a couple of successes at the end, but the spine of the book that has no narrative is a full explanation of the 8 core concepts and much more.